Hi, I'm Elizabeth at the Radford Public Library, and I'm here along with Story to give you a little book review and also tell you about a book that's new to us at the Radford Public Library. It's a two-for-one. It's a twofer. And that book recommendation is for this new book titled The Bright Side Sanctuary for Animals. It's written by Becky Mandelbaum. It came out in 2020, toward the end of 2020. And I wanted to read this for a couple of reasons. One, I really loved the cover. I loved the barn and the landscape and the person out walking the dog. I also like the title. We're doing a reading challenge for 2021, and one of those challenges is to choose a book that has a title that consists of 5 words or more, so a fairly long title, and that just met the requirement. So I wanted to read this. It's also just a really good story about an animal sanctuary. And this author, Becky Mandelbaum, won the Flannery O'Connor Award for short fiction for her collection of short stories. This is her debut novel, and I'm so glad I read it, although I do have to confess that my dog chewed the edge of it, so now I'm going to have to buy it. It's a good thing I liked it, because now I get to own it. But there is a replacement here for you if you'd like to read this story. The story is told from 3 different perspectives. One is from Mona's perspective. Mona is the mother and the owner of this Brightside Sanctuary. This was her dream, and when she lost her father, she used her inheritance to begin this sanctuary to care for all these unwanted animals. And part of what I liked about this story was reading about all these sweet animals that she takes in, mostly dogs and cats, but also horses and a pig and a donkey, all these different kinds of critters who need help. And so we read the story from Mona's point of view. We also read from the point of view of her daughter, Ariel. Ariel gets a scholarship to college and wants to move away to go to college, and her mother and she have a big falling out because her mother doesn't want her to go. Her mother wants her to stay and help her with the sanctuary, and instead Ariel chooses herself and her education and goes off to college. And as the reader, when we start learning more about Ariel, we realize it's been 6 years since Ariel and Mona spoke. And this is a really long time, especially for a mother and daughter who genuinely loved and adored each other, got along well, and both took really good care of the animals on the sanctuary. And then the third character and final character who has a point of view in this story, who gets several chapters of his own, is a young man named Dex. Dex is Ariel's boyfriend at college. Dex is a really likable guy. And as the story begins, there's been a fire on the sanctuary. They've lost a barn and some horses. And Ariel reads about it and wants to go home and check on her mother in the sanctuary. So she abruptly leaves school, and Dex, who is her fiance, follows her in a different car. And so she's returning home for the first time to speak to her mom, and Dex, her boyfriend, is behind her, also going to meet her at the sanctuary. So this is a story in which lots of relationships kind of converge. Some relationships are rebuilt and some fall apart. It's a great story about these wonderfully different animals that are on the sanctuary. It's a story about mothers and daughters and that bond and how that bond can sometimes, really struggle. It's also about neighbors and how there are these neighborly conflicts. It's set in Kansas. It takes place in 2016 when there's a new president, so there's some political conflict as well. It's a really good story. I do recommend it. Again, it does meet a requirement on the 2021 Reading Challenge. Also, one of the reading challenges is to read a book with an animal on the cover, and there's a little dog on that cover, so I think you could also get away with reading this one under that heading as well. So that's what's new at the Radford Public Library. I will give you that. The review from Kirkus on this book is that it is a feel-good charmer, and the review from Publishers Weekly is that it is heartwarming and sharp-witted, emotionally intelligent, and big-hearted. And I agree with all of those things. It was a delightful read. It's a quick read. I got through it in just a couple of days. If you'd like to give it a try, again, it's The Bright Side Sanctuary for Animals. It's a particularly good read if you have a soft spot for animals, and it's written by Becky Mandelbaum. Thanks so much for listening. Please stay well, take care, and we hope to see you soon at the Radford Public Library.